Well, I've been having a ball today. My meters finally came in. This took a long time, 2, 3 months. But I guess with the pandemic and everything in China, I'm not surprised, and I'm probably lucky I even got it at all. However, so the next step was to figure out how I was going to mount it in this thing. Originally, we had this red glass that went in the back there, inside. And there was a meter on each side, which I took the whole meter assembly out, the whole board. And then this is flexible enough that I was able to push through the glass and pop it out the back side, and I was able to remove it. So once that was gone, then that exposed these two rectangular slots, which were not big enough for these meters. So the first thing I had to do was I used a nibbler. This is a nibbling tool. And the nibbler hung in over the edge of the metal like that, and then I squeezed the trigger, and it nibbles a little chip of metal off. Then you move down, you nibble off the next chip, and the next chip, and so on. Then you go down and do the next row until you can't do anymore. And the reason you can't do anymore is because it's double thick. There's two walls of metal here. I don't know if you can see that. But there's an inside wall and there's an outside wall. And the inside wall is actually kind of heavy duty. The outside wall is sort of thin. And then on top of that, besides having just the rectangular opening, if you look on these things, there is, I'm going to point to it here, you've got these little tabs here and here, and the same thing on the bottom. And they're a little triangular pyramid that kind of sticks up out the top. You can see it there a little bit. It sticks out the bottom too. And then what happens is you get this thing and supposedly you can snap it in place. These things will snap down and they'll hold this unit in. Only thing is, the way this thing is made, there is almost no give at all. If you push down on these tabs, they back up against an LED that's inside of there, and they just don't want to go down on either side. So you are stuck having to file out little notches for those things to go, and that's why this looks so kind of irregular here. These little notches are for those tabs to kind of slide through and just barely catch. So I've been filing, using a little file, and I've been filing that metal out to get those tabs like that. Same thing on the top. And then eventually, you get it to where you can fit these things in, and it's just barely catching on the top and the bottom, and I could actually get the bottom to go in. I think I could probably get the top to go in now. I'm close. Now I've already done the left side. Got to look at it here, and I labeled the bottom. The bottom row is amps. The top row is volts. You noticed I punched out the 5-volt output. It had I don't know what you want to call it, a special proprietary output for the 5 volts that actually required there's 4 leads in it, so it sensed the 5 volts at the end of the leads and fed a sense signal back and corrected the 5 volts, which, I don't know, it seems like overkill to me, but that's fine. But what I've done is I connected those, punched this out, cut those 4 wires, connected the 2 pairs together, and I wired them so that the positive is on this one side and the negative on the other side. Then I provided a jumper that runs over to this other side here. These were originally measuring ports. This unit was built at a time when digital meters were just coming on board and kind of becoming the rage. Kind of expensive too, which is why this thing was so danged expensive in its day. Even though it only had like, I don't know, 2 places, I think. So anyway, they were using this as a voltmeter as well as a power supply, but a voltmeter that only had 2 places. Well, I mean, I don't need that. And when it comes to reading my voltage, I want more than 1 place anyway. So these meters that I purchased, they've got 4 digits. So it'll read, say, for instance, 0.001. That'll be volts, and you got 0.121 for the amperes down on the bottom. So I've got a lot more places there. I'm not going to need to read voltage with it. I've got all kind of voltmeters around here. They're all digital, so don't need that. But I figured I could use the 5 volts on each side. I'm going to relabel these things. I don't know whether I'm going to use these cheap labels at first, and then eventually I'll see what I can do. But this will read 5 volts here and 5 volts there, so I'll have nice symmetric variable voltage on this side, variable voltage on that side, 5 volts for that side, 5 volts for that side. Power switch on and off. I'm going to get a plug and just seal this hole off with a plug, plastic hole plug. And then we'll either paint over or scribble out that legend that's on there. It says output 5 volts and so on. And so I'll have, that's the other thing. When you wanted to read, you had to have a switch here. Actually, it was a switch under here. It says, you notice here it says A and V. I already covered it over with the label on this side. You had a switch, and you put it over on the amp side, and you were able to read amperes in your meter. And if you wanted to read volts, then you had to flip it over to the volt side, and then you could read volts. But you couldn't read both together. And if you're trying to balance the both together so you don't exceed a wattage, you had a problem. So it's much better to have both readouts at simultaneously with my voltage and my current together on both sides. So I'm going to be a lot happier with that, I think. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and install this meter. What can I tell you about it? I am in series with the positive lead, and then coming back through the negative lead to my current meter, and then my voltmeter is tapped off of there as well, parallel. Same thing is going to be on the other side. I don't have to worry about any of the calibration points in the back and so on. Most of that was to calibrate the readout board. So anyway, I will come back and show you what happens a little bit later. Okay, well, we got both meters installed and working, as you can see. And threw some labeling on, covered up some holes, changed erroneous labeling. So basically we've got a reasonably decent, sensible power supply. We have, instead of 1 decimal place, we've got 3 decimal places. Even when we get to the double digits ahead of it, we'll have 2 decimal places, so we're way ahead of that. And we have simultaneous current display. Current's on the bottom. We're not drawing anything yet, but we will be in a few moments when I test her out. Give you a quick look at the inside. There was one board that went from here to here that had the 2 displays and all of the calibration devices and such on it, replaced with these two meters. I've got the meters in series with the power output for current, and then I'm monitoring across those outputs for the voltage. And I'm taking the the voltage to operate it from the voltages that were used to operate the original board. So that was cool. These new meters will take anything from like 5 volts up to 30 volts. And it turns out these had like 14 volt outputs on it. So I went ahead and used them. Spliced in and used heat shrink tubing on all of my splicings. Other than that, really nothing else to worry about or talk about even. We've got the 5 volt output on both sides, the adjustable outputs on both sides. You dial in your voltage range. You've got 5, 10, 15, and 20 volt ranges. You can dial in your current limiting sense here. And I'm going to go ahead and set it up, and we'll give it a little test. And I will put the cover back on it so we can kind of get an idea what the finished product will look like. Okay, be back in a minute. Okay, well, we've got a 10 ohm 50 watt load in the box here. We're going across that load, and we're coming from the output here. We've got 4.868 right now dialed in. Let's see, I'll try and make it 5. That's about as close to 5 as I can get it. It's a pretty rough pot, very sensitive to the touch. If I was to put a, yeah, we got better there. If I was to put a 10 turn pot in there, I think I'd be happier. But there's 5 volts, and we're getting 0.497 amps, 0.5 amps. That's a 10 ohm load, which would be about right. Now, that's on that side. Let's try the other side. All right, we see we've got 4.875. Let's see if we can get 5 again. .002, 0.496, so 0.5 amps once again. So both sides is working fine. We're getting simultaneous amperage and voltage displayed. We can adjust our voltage. We can limit our current. Yep, see, I just shut everything down there by adjusting the current to nil. I'm going to start raising it and see what we can do. Yeah, there's 0.1, 1.14 volts. So the current is controlling the circuit now. Okay, so that's cool. That's working. I've got my 5 volt output here. We could check that, but I did. I checked it a minute ago, and we've got 5 volts coming out. So, all right. Now, if I jack this up to 10 volts, we'll pull an amp. I can't do it for long, but let's give it a go. 10 volts, 1 amp, right in the nose. So that's working just fine. Just on the 10 volt range right now. There. Excellent. And it's a decent looking piece of equipment. Turned out quite nice. I may spray paint the case, and I've got a plug coming for the face here, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get rid of the print here, but we'll figure a way. I think she's been coated with a little bit of plastic. There's like a plastic layer over the print, but we'll find a way. So this little beauty provides 2 0 to 20 volt adjustable power outputs at up to 2 amps. And then it has, well, now it has 2 5 volt outputs that in combination can put up to 4 amps out. So we've got a lot of capability here. And it's either voltage controlled or current controlled, current limiting if you want to call it that. circuitry, so I can adjust for a given current and it'll adjust the voltage accordingly, or I can adjust the voltage and take the current that I get. Very nice unit. Picked up for $10 plus $10 shipping, so $20 total. Threw another, I don't know, $15 into the meters and put in at least a day and a half's worth of work on it. Let's go 2 days. But it's a nice bench supply. It's going to be a real nice addition here. So, all right. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.